still time to change the road you're on.
Hi everybody, it's Dave the Red Pill Coach, and I'm back, and this time I'm finally going to bring to you some cognitive behavioral therapy education that will no doubt make your life better and help your relationships to work. So, we've talked about behavioral theory, okay, and we've talked about operant conditioning and stimulus response and extinction and a couple other concepts, the extinction burst, the extinction curve, and the fact that all animals are heavily influenced by what happens after a behavior occurs. If what happens after the behavior is positive or pleasurable, then the organism performs more of that behavior. If what happens after a behavior is negative, then oftentimes, over time at least, the organism will do less of that behavior. So we focused on observable behavior because that is behavioral theory. But when you combine thinking with behavioral theory, and you have to do that with humans because we are thinking creatures, you get something completely different than behavioral theory. You get cognitive behavioral theory, CBT. And cognitive behavioral therapy is the gold standard in psychotherapy today, and it's also largely the area of psychology where coaches have borrowed or stolen, whatever you prefer. We base our methodologies largely on cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's very useful, it's very effective, and it's based on scientific research and study. So let's talk about cognition, okay? Cognition, or the cognitive part of cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognition is thinking. It's your internal thoughts. And cognitive behavioral therapists have identified several types of thinking. The first, and I'm just going to list them very quickly, and then focus on one of them. The first is what's known as automatic thoughts. Automatic thoughts are thoughts that enter your brain unbidden. You don't really want them, but they pop into your head anyway. They come into your mind quickly without any effort. They're usually short. They're usually related to a specific situation. And it's important to know what your automatic thoughts are, because if your automatic thoughts are negative, you can begin to transform your automatic thoughts into thoughts that are more positive. And we'll talk about that in another video. First of all, I want to get to how we acquire our automatic thoughts. And we get our automatic thoughts largely from dysfunctional cognition. Cognition is the second type of thinking, and cognition is the deep thinking that you maybe experience before you're going to sleep at night, and so on, where you're actually thinking. Now, what creates negative automatic thoughts? Well, negative cognition creates negative automatic thoughts, and it's important to understand that you can control your cognition. You can't really control your automatic thoughts until you get control of your cognition. But you can certainly control your cognition. When you're thinking something bad, you can consciously think about something not bad. And you can teach yourself to do that over time. So where and how does negative cognition turn into negative thoughts? It occurs when you have a type of cognition called a cognitive distortion. There are several types of cognitive distortions, and I'm going to give you two different examples of each. The first, from the social response we've had so far to the COVID-19 outbreak. And the second, I will apply these cognitive distortions to your marriage or your relationship. So we'll go through them, and then we'll go through them again. Now, remember, when you give a lecture, the style is to tell them, then tell them again, and then tell them what you told them. So we're going to do that. I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you again, then I'm going to tell you what I told you. Okay. So I'm going to take the types of cognitive distortions that are commonly seen, and I'm going to apply them first to the coronavirus response, because that's the thing in the news, and I think it's interesting. So the first type of cognitive dysfunction or distortion that people experience is known as catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. This is when you predict an extremely negative future outcome. Boy, have we had that. Millions are going to die. We're all going to get sick. We're not going to have enough respirators. We're going to have 1 million respirators we need and only 5,000 that can be used. We've been catastrophizing this entire epidemic from the very beginning, imagining the worst possible negative future outcome. It's not good. We need to avoid doing that in the COVID-19 outbreak and in our marriage. The second thing we've been doing is all or nothing thinking. The second type of cognitive distortion. This is when, this is binary, when you view things as all bad, black or white, men bad, women good. In the case of COVID, we've been seeing this binary thinking all over the place. My God, you talk about, 100,000 people are going to commit suicide if we don't open the economy. And immediately they say, well, if we open the economy, people will die. You want people to die? You see the binary thinking here. It's a choice between people dying or destroying our economy. That's our binary choice they've given us. And it's a dysfunction. That's not the binary choice that we have. We don't have a binary choice. It is very much a choice on the dimmer dial. It's not binary. The next cognitive distortion is personalization. And this is thinking that the negative words or actions are directed towards you, or assuming that you're the cause of the negative event. We haven't seen this so much, but we have seen some of it, where people think that everything is associated with them. I mean, for example, we read out of the 600,000 people who have the virus, and the 50,000 people who've been killed by the virus, there's one baby who dies, and my wife is all upset. Oh my God, we have young kids too, and babies are not immune. So you're personalizing. You're thinking that, it's going to be my baby out of the 6 billion people on the planet that's going to die, when there's one. And then of course I found out later that the baby who died was on the heart transplant list. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to blame coronavirus on it, but that is what put the baby over the edge. Healthy babies, as far as we know, don't even get sick from this, but yet we can't avoid personalizing it. Overgeneralizations is the next cognitive distortion, and we see this all the time when one negative situation is represented as all similar events. So, for example, you look in the baby example, you see one baby die, and they go, oh, well, all babies are going to die. No, you are overgeneralizing, and that is a cognitive distortion which leads to very negative thoughts. Labeling. This is when we attach negative labels to others. Instead of focusing on what you didn't like or what you want to change, you put a label on it. You say, black people are more affected by coronavirus, so that must be because they're dirty. Well, that's almost assuredly not correct. And when you put a label on people instead of the problem, you put away the solution. Similar to this is magnification, minimization. When you emphasize the bad things, de-emphasize the good things. And boy, have we been doing that. Hydroxychloroquine is not proven. Let's de-emphasize that all we can and emphasize, so-and-so dying from it. Okay. Emotional reasoning. Again, we've been doing this. Let your emotions rule the day and guide your conclusions. discounting positives, where you disqualify positive experiences. You just say, not going to work, we're all going to die. Or maybe something good happened accidentally. You ignore it. Maybe someone was lying when giving you a compliment, so you discount the positives. Don't do that. Don't discount the positive. Emphasize the positives. And the exact opposite of that is the next cognitive distortion, which is negativity bias. Again, seeing only the bad aspects of the situation, which again we are doing all over the place here. Another cognitive distortion is should-must statements. In other words, setting yourself up based on what you should do or what society thinks you should do. I should treat my sex-denying wife nice. I should buy her flowers. Well, maybe. But if you're doing it because you think that's what you should do, not because you logically believe that's what you should do to make things better, then you're using should-must statements, and it's probably not going to work out for you. And then there's the jumping to conclusions, especially when you make negative predictions about the outcome of a situation. So, 2.2 million dead with no mitigation, as if there was not going to be any mitigation until the government told us what to do. Well, when people start dying by the thousands, people tend to mitigate. They tend to stay home. They tend to, social distance. So there was never going to be 2.2 million dead. The models were wrong from the beginning. And I have to think they knew that. And they jumped to conclusions in order to maximize their case. So these are the cognitive distortions as applied to the coronavirus. Let us apply them to relationships. And hopefully you can see how this makes you have bad thoughts. And hopefully you can see how when you identify these, you can work on them and consciously shift them to something else. So the first is catastrophizing. And I see this all the time as a life coach. All the time. Guys are terrified. Well, if I do this, what if she divorces me? If I stand up to her, what if she gets mad? What if she takes the kids and leaves? Well, I can't say that she's not going to do that. But I can say, if you assume the worst, then it will prevent you from being your best. It's related to all or nothing thinking. If I do this, then she's going to take the all or nothing step and do that. The truth is, very rarely do women make that move, especially with a man who is improving and who's strong. Very rarely will a woman divorce a man who is standing up to her. So, take heart and stand up to her more, guys. Personalization. Again, all the time happens in marriage. The wife says something and you take it personally. You get butthurt. You whine, oh, she was mean. And, why is she being a bitch to me? Well, maybe she's on the reg. Maybe she's got a cold. Maybe she doesn't feel good. And it has nothing to do with you. Get over yourself already. It's not always about you. Quit personalizing what your wife does or says to you. It creates negative thoughts. Overgeneralization. This is when you see one negative situation representing all the similar events. I stood up to her and she didn't sleep with me for 2 days. Therefore, every time I stand up to her, she's not going to sleep with me for 2 days. You're generalizing. You're assuming a static organism. Women, human beings, are not static. We change over time. You can't generalize, and you certainly shouldn't overgeneralize. The next one is labeling. And we see labeling all the time, attaching negative labels to others. And, of course, we do this in Red Pill all the time. AWOLT, all women are like that. And, some of the more incel guys will say all women are bitches and so on. Attaching negative labels doesn't particularly help. What helps is when you focus on what you want, not what you want to change in the other person. Let me repeat that. Focus on what you want, not changing the other person, and things will probably go much better for you. Magnification, minimization. This is emphasizing the bad things, de-emphasizing the good things. People do this all the time in marriage. And I have to, in a session, I'll have to redirect them. Well, spend 5 minutes just telling me the good things about your wife. And clients they'll go on and on. Oh, my wife does this, my wife does that. And then I'll stop them. Well, spend 5 minutes telling me the good about your wife. And I'll get total silence. They can't see it. Their minds are cognitively distorted because all they can see is the bad. And when you start emphasizing the good, that's when your random thoughts begin more and more being good. Got that? Good. Again, a lot of these are similar, discounting positives. When you disqualify positive experiences, we had great sex last night, but now she's being a bitch today. Well, maybe she's tired. There could be any number of excuses, but don't discount the positive. Take your victories and run with them. Negativity bias. People get into a rut and they see their partner in negative terms. Only see the bad aspects, only see the bad character flaws. If you focus on those negative character flaws, it will literally metastasize and destroy your relationship. So focus more on the positive. And you can't do it all at once, but try it once a day. Spend 5 minutes thinking about only the good things with your wife. Then 10 minutes, then 20. Then start banishing some of the bad thoughts. And over time, you can retrain your cognition to be positive rather than negative. Similar to this are the should-must statements. And these are setting expectations for yourself about what you should do, not what you must do to maintain and better a relationship. And these things are like, I should buy her flowers, I should do this, I should do that. Maybe you should. Don't discount it, but don't do it because you think you should. Do it because logically it's going to make the situation better. So if you got a woman who's not having sex with you, buying her flowers doesn't work. We know this. Absolutely does not work. So why would you follow society's should-have, must-have cognitive distortion and buy her flowers? No, buy her flowers. Here's a pro tip. Buy her flowers after a great night of sex, not before. And then finally, jumping to conclusions and making negative predictions about the outcome of a situation. All of these are related to, or almost all of them, are related to negative thinking. So the strategy is to identify your negative thinking and then slowly change it to more positive thinking. Now, I can't make it any easier than that, but I'm also out of time, so we'll continue on some of the strategies for getting rid of your intrusive thoughts that are negative and for turning around your cognitive distortions to make yourself more positive, more happy or happier, and a much higher functioning human being. So, I hope that was helpful. I'll talk to you guys next week, and thank you very much.
I can't do this all on my own. No, I know I'm no Superman. I'm no Superman.